Hey guys, we're here today in Valheim, taking a look at 8 tips that will help you conquer the plains. Tip number 1 is to bring some ice with you. It doesn't matter what form this really takes, if you prefer to have melee weapons like Frostner, or if you like to stock up on some ice arrows and use a bow. Although the ice damage type is not exactly threatening to a lot of things in the plains, and doesn't deal increased damage to anything, it can be very helpful to slow some things down and give you extra time and open up opportunities. This is especially true if you're playing in a group of players, that ice can be incredibly valuable as a crowd control source. But even while you're playing by yourself, ice can do wonders to slow down a Fuling berserker as it's barreling towards you, slow down those speedy Fuling that are circling and surrounding you, or even slow down a growth that's bouncing around so you can line up some better shots with something like silver arrows. And since the ice damage type can really help you out in places like the swamp, hopefully it won't be too much of a struggle for you to carry some along with you anyway, since you'll always be needing some of that iron down the road. Tip number 2, play chicken with Squitos. Now, if you've played the game and gone through the plains before, you likely already know how to take down Squitos, so this might be a tip that's strictly for new players, or at the very least returning players who need their memory refreshed. But firing arrows at Squitos or swinging at Squitos with a weapon that are currently flying around is simply a waste of energy and can actually get you killed in the long run. Squitos have a very simple attack pattern and they always follow it. They will buzz around for a little bit and you just need to keep your eye on them. As soon as they start making a beeline towards your character, you're just playing chicken to see who gets their shot off first. This is the point right when they're coming at you that you want to fire your bow, or time out a block with your shield and swing at them afterwards. After a couple bouts with a Squito, you'll definitely get the timing of when you should block if you're using a melee weapon, or you'll get down the arc you need for your arrow to hit them pretty easily. Once you get this down and you can spot Squitos before they're coming after you, they can be fairly simple to deal with, provided you're not dealing with too many at the same time. Tip number 3 is to open tame locks. Now this is not always useful and sometimes you want to pull locks to a pin just like you would with boar or wolves. But at one point or another, you are going to have to stay in the area while the locks tames, which takes about half an hour. Now if you have the time available, I would recommend taming them out in the open. Locks stay in the same area, and once you find a small herd of them, they will hang around that area the entire time. So if you can sneak up on them, which is fairly easy to do, even with something as low as 5 sneak, and not even wearing troll hide, then you can throw some cloudberries in the area and move away. They will start eating them and becoming tamed while you're in the area. So you can move on to do other things and look for other resources as long as you stay within a pretty tight distance to them. Even if you get caught by one of the locks and they chase you, as long as you get it to break aggro off you, it will return to its spot and begin taming again. Now open taming locks can be helpful because you don't need to build a pin for them, since they break down wood really quickly and you'd probably have to do something out of stone or at least reinforce walls, and this way doesn't waste any of those resources. Now once they do become tame, they don't fight with the other locks, which makes it relatively safe, and if you brought a saddle along with you, then you can just hook it up on the locks and move it to your base afterwards. Now if you're struggling taking down any fueling or growth nearby, and you have the time to open tame some locks, they can also be very helpful to just have placed in the area right after they're tamed and drag fueling or growth to them to give you some extra combatives. Tip number 4 is to attack the fueling's crops. No doubt, as you get into the plains, you're hunting for flax and barley since they are very important resources. And if you're like me, you want to get it with as little combat as possible, so you may try to get it while you sprint through their village. Now, if you go and click E on each of these, it will slow your character down and be difficult to get them before getting hit. But if you bring along an at-gear or any other weapon, to be honest, and swing at the plants while you're fighting the fueling, it will automatically harvest them, and they'll be auto-picked up into your inventory. This is a much quicker way to harvest the barley and flax, so that you can take as little damage as possible, and dash in and out as quick as you can. This also applies for you once you get your own garden rolling, is you can swing at flax and barley in order to harvest them in large amounts. As soon as you hit one of the plants, they drop onto the ground just like as if you picked them. Now, this does not work with any other plants in the game, just flax and barley, so make sure your weapons are sheathed any other time you're harvesting. Tip number 5 is to bring a Huntsman bow. Now, I know a lot of you love your Draugr Fang because it's very cool looking, and that poison damage can be pretty helpful. I have ran some tests between the two, however, and for whatever reason, the Draugr Fang is louder than the Huntsman bow. If you kill an enemy with the Draugr Fang, any enemies within 4 meters of him will become aggroed on you and know your position. However, if you kill something with the Huntsman bow at the same distance, those enemies only become alerted and are not sure of where you are at the moment, allowing you to land more sneak attacks and to set up more shots. So if you want to slowly and carefully try and take out a fueling base, and drop enemies one at a time, take the Huntsman bow with you. If you have high quality arrows, you can still one-shot a lot of enemies, and the impact damage of the Huntsman bow is just below that of the Dragerfink. Tip number 6 is to bring Ooze bombs. Perhaps you haven't even made them, or haven't checked them out at all. But Ooze bombs can actually be fairly useful when you're taking down a Fuling village. You unlock them while you're in the swamp, and almost everything there is immune to poison, so these never got really used. But once you get to Fuling camps, these Ooze bombs can be chucked in to drop out large groups of Fuling to around half health before they even make it to you, really cutting down on the amount of damage you need to put out before you can drop the village. These Ooze bombs are also safe to throw at the feet of your character if you're trying to get a group of enemies right at you. They don't apply poison debuff to you or do any damage to your character even when you have friendly fire on, which makes them entirely safe to just throw around the battlefield and apply poison as much as you can. Now it's important to keep in mind that the poison does not stack, it will simply override the previous stack. So don't just chuck a bunch of Ooze bombs out on the same enemy, save them and spread them throughout the fight and kite with them efficiently in order to kill mobs without having to get up close and personal. Tip number 7 is to utilize growths to help you fight enemies. Now this is a really high risk, high reward tip. No matter how careful you are on the plains, a lot of times you can get overwhelmed by Lox or Fuling. The growth enemy in the plains will also fight these guys and are not friendly in any way. Now this is very high risk because if you run near a tar pit and you yourself get hit by a growth, you are almost certainly dead because you will be incredibly slowed. The high reward is that they can deal a lot of damage to Lox and to Fuling in a very short amount of time. So if you drag enemies there and you use a lot of horizontal movement to run around the growth, you can dodge a lot of their shots and hopefully get a Fuling or a Lox trapped in their slow chain. Once this happens, you can help the growth fight them and drop enemies very quickly, or you can just watch the chaos ensue. Now most of the time, if it's a Fuling Berserker or a Lox, the Fuling Berserker or Lox will beat the growths. But the growths can help you put a dent into their health bar and make the fight a lot more manageable. And tip number 8 is to use portals to escape. Now, in every previous biome we've been in, there has been some form of dungeon or cave that we can enter or zone line we can use to break aggro off of enemies and get a short break. Now, none of these things exist in the plains, which makes it very hard to get away from the swarm mentality of the Fuling. This is why you should either set up a portal at your home base or nearby in a safe spot with like a campfire with no tag on it. If you spawn a portal and don't type anything into its slot, it will link to any other portal placed that has not had anything typed down for its tag. This will allow you to carry the workbench and portal materials on your character. And you can actually place these while kiting or running from an enemy as soon as you see things going south and escape. It only takes 10 stamina to place the workbench and the portal, and this can work pretty effectively if you're quick at changing menus. And it's a whole lot better to save your life by getting out a little early than having to do a corpse run through the plains trying to dodge death Squitos and a whole bunch of Fuling. Once you teleport through the portal, these enemies don't attack the workbench or the portal as long as you're not in the area. So you can sit there at a campfire, rest, get healed back up, and get the rested bonus, and then teleport back through and try and take them down. Now they will break things down as soon as you enter back through the portal, so make sure you're quick to pick up the pieces again so you can rebuild the portal if need be. It also seems like as you teleport through, you can't take any damage and you have a short amount of immunity. So even though you can hear enemies attacking things right when you begin the teleportation, you don't take any damage until your screen comes up, so just make sure you're quick on your feet and you should be fine. In order for this portal escape to work, you need to make sure you don't have any black metal on your characters. So the safest way to use this method is to make sure you've clicked V and turned off auto pickup of loot before you've gone into the camp, or just play without it as it is and pick up only what you choose. Alright guys, that is all the tips I have for today to conquer the plains. Hopefully this video was helpful to you and you can use these tips to your advantage in the plains. If you have any tips that can help someone else conquer the plains, please post them in the comments so that we can get the best information out there as possible. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.